A few minutes to allow everybody to enter, so we'll get going in a couple of minutes.
Paul.
Hello?
It's Frank.
Oh, hello, Frank. How are you doing?
Very good, yeah. Long time no see.
It has been a few years, yeah. We must follow up offline.
Definitely, yeah.
You've got glasses now.
Well, yes.
Oh, I also see Basil as well. Gosh.
Basil's here, yeah.
Well, I will get us going then, if that's okay with everybody. Good afternoon, and welcome to the latest event, the 9th in our Liverpool Leaders series, where we interview alumni from the University of Liverpool who have gone on to become leaders in their field. Tonight, I am delighted to say we have been joined by Paul Broadhurst, the President, Founder and Chief Executive of Technetix Group Limited. Before we get started, a brief note on today's session. We would advise you to select Speaker View. Please do stay muted, and we will come to your questions for Paul in about 25 minutes or so. So please do post any questions that come to mind in the chat, and we will get to them later. So, on to today's session. Paul Broadhurst was born in Bristol, the son of a chemist and an aeronautical engineer. In 1978, he came to Liverpool to study electrical engineering, and he went on to hold positions at Management Consultants, PA Consulting, Continental Microwave, and EMI Central Research Labs. In 1990, he founded telecommunications company Technetix, which grew on the rollout of broadband cable networks to 20 offices worldwide. And today it exports to 70 countries in Europe, the Americas, and Asia Pacific. Paul also holds an MSc degree in microwave and optics from University College London, as apparently other universities are available. He's a chartered engineer, a member of the Institute of Engineering and Technology, a European engineer, and a member of the IEEE, Institute of Electrical and Electronic Engineers USA. He has also been inducted into the class of 2020 Cable TV Pioneers. So, hello, Paul.
Good evening, everyone. Hello, nice to meet you. Good to meet you, Mark.
Thank you very much for joining us. So, if I can rewind back to the start of that introduction, why did you decide to come to the University of Liverpool? And are you still in touch with anyone from your time here?
I'm loosely in touch, but in fact, there's two old friends on this call actually, so I'm going to connect with them because I haven't spoken to them for a long while. But let me answer the primary question. Yeah, so the reason I went to Liverpool was I wanted to go to a red brick, solid engineering university. I always wanted to do engineering since I was 12. And of course, Liverpool has a great long-term reputation in science and engineering going all the way back. In fact, in my field, being electronics, of course, you know, we have to bow down to Sir Robin Saxby, the founder of ARM, but you know, who did the same course as me. I obviously didn't quite listen as well as he did, but there's lots and lots of famous guys like Barkler that invented X-rays, and Corona who invented gene editing. There are a few wrong ones like Frank Duckworth that invented the Duckworth-Lewis system for cricket, if anyone's into cricket, when it rains on a physicist. I don't know why physicists get involved in rugby in cricket, but I don't understand it, but he obviously did. But yeah, I was very also in my year, in fact, in my corridor in Derby Hall was Chris Lowe, the keyboard player out of Pet Shop Boys. So, you know.
Of course.
So yeah, Liverpool
Yeah.
I had a lovely time in Liverpool. Great city. Is always a special place in my heart for Liverpool. Great city.
Absolutely. Well, we're very glad you came in. Thank you for joining us today. What were the most important things you learned at Liverpool, would you say? Whether it was part of the curriculum or perhaps other things you experienced in your time at Liverpool?
I think the thing that was good about my course at Liverpool is it started off with very broad-based engineering. So, a lot of people can be very, very specialized, but in terms of the job you end up in, most people like me ended up making products. So when you're making products, it's a combination of how they're used, how you communicate. They've got mechanical engineering, electronic engineering, chemical engineering, heat, and I would say that the background I got at Liverpool was very, very good because it was very broad-based, going to very specialized situations. I think that that's the first reason. Second, it I hate it's okay to say it, but it wasn't ultra academic. It was very real world, and I think that if I compare myself and my education with a lot of the guys that I met from other universities, I felt much more equipped for the world after Liverpool than perhaps a lot of the Oxbridge guys who were more theoretical and not practicable.
Well, I think that's hopefully something still continuing. Talking to our colleagues in talking to colleagues in engineering, I know we still have an amazing graduate employment rate across the department. So clearly, employers still
Yeah,
value.
I mean, I would always look at any CV from Liverpool University. I mean, we're always looking for engineering, no advert, engineering or science graduates, no advert there. And I think the important thing also is that it's very easy for people to be very, very good engineers or very good scientists, but you're not effective unless you can communicate. And people who can't communicate can't achieve things. They can't influence people. So it's very, very important that you do the engineering, solve the problems, and then when you've done it, go and inspire and communicate and influence people to come along with your ideas. Otherwise, your idea is left in a warehouse somewhere and forgotten about.
Definitely. So, well, you finished at Liverpool and you were raring to go. What did you do before Technetix?
Well, my first job actually was at EMI. A lot of people think of EMI as a record company, but EMI at the time I left, it was right in the middle of the Cold War, and so a lot of people were going into defence. So perversely, EMI was also a record company, and I joined EMI just at the time where they fired the Sex Pistols, actually, but. EMI actually did a lot of private work on products, and in fact, the Beatles, which EMI was the record company for, actually made EMI a very, very rich company. So Liverpool had a great effect on my first job, and they invented the CT scanner, and I met the guy that had invented it, Sir Humphrey Hounsfield, who was a radar engineer that met a brain surgeon, and they were talking about the difficulties of finding brain tumors. And this guy was a radar engineer saying, oh, all you have to do is do a 3D effectively radar system using X-rays, and 4 years later they'd made one. It's just amazing. So I've learned time and time again that you can take technology from one area to another, and I would say that my background, it was in defense electronics, and I got taught and learnt very much about defense electronics, but then I went on to use a lot of that technology in commercial areas, and that's really what set the foundations for Technetix, because I believe that a successful company has got to be different. You've got to, you can't just come along to the market making the same thing as your competitors are doing for less price, and how do you make a brand name? You have to solve the problem or do things in a different way to have differentiation, and that's what we've been able to do all along.
So was it something you always wanted to do, set up your own business? Was it
I don't know about set up my own business. I always wanted to do engineering. My dad was an engineer, he was an aeronautical engineer, and since I was yay high, that was I was building electronic circuits when I was 8, and I was taking things to bits and then struggling to put them back together again. And obviously, coming to Liverpool, the great thing with Liverpool was that I was into amateur radio, actually building radio transmitters and receivers. And when I was at Liverpool, I was in the G3OUL, for people who know it, radio club. But what I actually did at Liverpool was mainly software and hardware, digital hardware and software. And it's only when I left Liverpool that people spotted that I knew about radio frequencies and then wanted to turn me into a microwave and RF engineer. So I had both. And that's, I think, the great thing. If you want to make products, you really have to have as broad a knowledge, and that combination of my personal hobby stuff and a very, very nice broad base of education at Liverpool set me up really, really well for life, I guess.
so how did you, was it a sort of typical tech startup in a garage, or how did
Yeah,
how did you get things together?
Technetix. In fact, I went to work for this consultancy, PA Technology, and we were working for British Satellite Broadcasting, and BSB was one of the two direct-to-home satellite operators. It sounds almost so old-fashioned, but people to receive multi-channel TV had to get a dish on their roof. And there was two companies, and I worked for one of them on the outdoor, effectively the dish and the LMB, which is the electronics which receives the signals. And being a microwave engineer, suddenly I was an expert on microwave antennas. And I went off to companies like Sony and Panasonic to audit their quality, which was more like me going on a trip to Japan to learn about quality, but I kept that quiet. And learned a hell of a lot, but really decided that I wanted to start up a business with two other guys, and we set up Technetix. It was very, very difficult to get into the consumer market, but we spotted an opportunity in broadband cable, which then was distribution of TV, but very, very soon became broadband. And on the back of that, saw lots of opportunities first to customize products specific for the UK market, and soon countries across Europe. And then on the back of that, we found a customer in the UK that needed a special customer unit. We quoted. They didn't realize we didn't even have a company hardly, so off we went and started making it in a double garage. And at the time, I was still working, and we were doing it in the evenings and probably to 2 o'clock in the morning and at the weekend. So it was crazy. I mean, it was 3,500 starting capital, a little bit of a loan of 20,000 from the bank, and then all the components we bought on credit cards. And it was great at that time because banks didn't do credit checks, so you could have about 10 credit cards with and I got to about 80,000. I don't think you could do that anymore now, but I went to some meeting and everyone was going on about MB&A Bank was so brilliant because it financed their company. They didn't even know they were doing it, but I think it's difficult. There was a government-backed loan scheme, but the the number of interviews, we started it, and the number of interviews you went through. I mean, this is very much a difficulty, really, of starting businesses. But the one thing I would say is that if you look at all the successful businesses, you can look Sony, Panasonic, Hewlett Packard, Apple, Microsoft. None of them, some did, but all of those companies all started in garages, and they all started on a shoestring. And the great thing about starting that way, looking back, is if you don't raise big money, you don't have a big loan to pay back. You don't waste money, and you work very hard because you can't afford to pay people any money. So for the first year or two, it was crazy, 80-hour weeks, 7 days a week. But once we got the starting capital going, we were rocking and rolling, really.
So it sounds like quite an adventure for the first couple of years.
It was.
What advice? So if there's anyone listening who's thinking of starting their own business, what budding entrepreneur in attendance, what advice would you give them if they're starting in 2023?
My advice is just do it. Follow your idea. I think that if you think about companies that succeed and fail, 95% of people who fail are over optimistic about the sales they'll make. So the one bit of advice I'd give is be very conservative about what you think you're going to achieve, and try and make it, in terms of your expenses, that the bar for success is as low as possible. And if you can find a product that's differentiated, don't just follow what other people are doing, and don't just resell something from another market. If you really want to build a business, I think you've got to get something different. And in terms of the way I built my business, I mean, I was in a business to business, but if you're a business to consumer, it's slightly different. But in a business to business environment, I was able to succeed by going to see customers, talking about the network equipment, because this is broadband transmission equipment. We make the equipment that goes from the office to the home. So it's the bit that goes through from the office. It's in those green cabinets in the street, or in a lot of countries like the US, it's hanging off telegraph utility poles. And the other thing, which was very much a success for us, was to go and talk to customers, talk about what they were doing, and listen to what they needed. And they were saying, I've got this, I've got this, I've got this, but this one is 80% of what I need. This is 80% of what I need. This is 70% of what I need. This is what I want. Can you make this? And that's what to be honest, that's the secret formula that makes us successful even now. It hasn't changed, because having quality and having great technology are must-haves. But the most important thing, I think, to a successful business, certainly in B2B, is intimacy with the customer, understanding absolutely what they want, listening carefully, acting like you work for them. And then, perversely, I wanted to raise a load of cash but couldn't. But the one thing I've learned is don't raise too much cash, don't borrow too much, especially in these days where interest rates are very high. And if you have to raise equity, you have to give away your shares. I always couldn't borrow any, so I still own quite a large 72% of the company, although we are looking at opportunities to buy and build. But I would say that that's what I would say. So, what I would say is just do it, follow your dreams. And what can you do? You can just fail and start up again and again and again. Lots of people do it 3 times. So what? You learn every time.
That's great advice. Thank you. So what's been your highlight of your career? I know you operate sort of, the company has now been around for what, 30 years? You operate in a number of countries. 33.
34 in March, so nearly coming up to 34. Yeah. It's I think the way I would say about the company is the thing that's kept me involved, because lots of people, talk about start a business, sell the business after 5 years or 8 years. I've always worked on that's probably what I was going to do, but just like a lot of businesses, there is always a new chapter. And in my business, there's been a lot of new chapters which have driven us. We started doing customized components for our market, then started effectively supporting the build of those networks. And more recently, we're doing the technology for upgrading existing networks to 10 gig download and upload, symmetrical 10 gigabit download. I know a lot of you would dream of 1 gigabit, but in a lot of parts of the world, 10 gig is where will be rolled out over the next 10 years. So what we're doing is laying the foundations by building network equipment. And I think the thing that I found most exciting is actually getting from the UK across Europe, and the most difficult markets has been USA and Canada. That's taken more than 10 years. It's been very, very tough. The politics against doing it are very tough. But in the last few years, we've really broken through. Half our business is in North America, and we have, done that, fighting tooth and nail to be better than our customers. Better than our competitors, and that's the only way you can succeed in our particular area. There's a massive shortage of craft skills. So we're doing a solution which allows you to upgrade as much as possible the existing network with plugins which plug into old 25-year-old slots and upgrade them to these speeds, and auto setup with very advanced auto setup software incorporating AI technology. And for me, that's very, very exciting. I mean, I still think back to the money engineering achievements, but I really feel now that we're starting to achieve something really, really great now.
You alluded to the difficulties of the USA and Canada, but have there been any really big wobbly moments, tricky bits of the last 35 years which have sort of threatened to scupper everything? And what did you learn from those?
Don't borrow too much money. It goes back to don't borrow too much money. And I would say the most difficult time was actually the 2008 meltdown, where we'd just done this was when we were growing up against Europe. So this is 16, 18 years ago. So we're on a big expansion. We wanted to be everywhere in Europe, and we just acquired a company in Spain. Probably paid slightly too much for it, but those were the crazy days coming up to 2008. And we had our banks saying borrow more, borrow more, borrow more, and then suddenly they want their money back. So it was quite scary, because at that time I wanted to go public. In fact, I was going to list on the AIM market, and of course the historians in the room will remember the famous Northern Rock Bank, and then that was in September 2007, which had a run which nobody really thought it was big, but that was just setting the foundations, which then ended up with Royal Bank of Scotland and Bank of Scotland collapsing. And of course, we all know about all the other banks internationally. And of course, that was the end of ever raising money publicly. But what I had done was I got a public company board ready to list, and they tried to take control of the company off me, but I managed to fight them off. And the great thing is my bank, which is still the same bank actually, HSBC, supported me, and they backed me, and went through a few wobbling moments in the part of the bank called Bad Bank, where the bad people go, and we came out very quickly after 6 months. That's the dark place that you go when you've broken your covenants. That's the one thing you must learn when you borrow money off a bank: don't break your covenants. You can do it maybe for 1 quarter or 2, but if you do it for 3, you're in the slammer. So I've done that once, and I'm never doing that again. So that's my darkest moment. I would say, other than that, we've had 1 or 2 nasty moments with anyone that's manufacturing. You know, you have a slip in quality and things like that. But you know, we really stress quality now in our manufacturing. So we haven't really had any too significant moments, but I still, you know, twist and turn occasionally at night thinking about whether one might happen.
Yeah, no, absolutely. So what the industry, well, tech is always changing. What's the big challenge for you over the next 5 years, perhaps?
I think the big challenge for us and most people building networks is that the markets are maturing. You know, as you probably noticed, 5G mobile hasn't been as big as people had thought it would be, but broadband, fixed or wireline broadband, has done very well. The thing that's made wireline broadband very successful, well, I'll just say the cause, and then I'll talk about what we're trying to do. The thing that really has driven wireline or fixed broadband has been COVID, because COVID has driven the whole world to hybrid working. So pretty well any job, any white collar job, people work 3 to 4 days in the office max, and work from home 1 to 2 days, and they're doing calls just like this, and they're doing it throughout everywhere, and that's in every country in the world. And it's very important, especially across continents, the latency for the sound to go from me to you and you to me seeing the whites of your eyes, you know, whether you believe me or you think I'm lying, you know, I need to tell you more information. So that's driven the requirement to improve broadband networks. So that's driven massive requirement to improve those networks. The main problem is the skills and the people to do it, and that's really where we've been driving smart setup. And the next generation, which we're in major development of, is using AI technology to basically do what the engineer would have done. But because we're doing major upgrades rather than maintenance, major upgrades, you know, complete end-to-end upgrades, we need 50 times more engineers than we had before. So we can't get them. So we have to put the brains of those engineers into the equipment for it to auto set up. And that's really where we're using AI style technology, because it doesn't just have to work. It has to very intelligently find line faults or damage to the network, because reliability, everyone knows that any teenager being disconnected from Wi-Fi for more than 15 seconds has been, you know, mistreated. So you have to make things very reliable.
No, absolutely. Well, yeah, as everyone on a particular network who had outages at the end of last week found, and everyone had
I hope it wasn't on one that we make equipment for.
No, it was a wireless network, so
Oh, that's all right then.
A wireless network, everything But yeah, no. So you mentioned people and skills. So I don't know. Do you still get involved in hiring within Technetix, and what are you
Oh
looking
yeah.
for? What are you looking for in talent? And do you hire people who are sort of well raw talent straight out of education? What's your feeling?
Uh, yes, we do. The number one thing we look for, or I look for, or my company looks for, and I've learned time and time again, is right attitude, can do attitude, and preferably leadership. And by leadership, I mean getting things done, getting things done to deadlines, understanding that really the only king in our world is not the boss, it's the customer. The customer is the boss. And the people that do well are people that grow and grow with the company, but also develop the people around them. Because in a growing company, you know, my company's grown, is growing 50% this year. We're expecting to grow 50% last year. So post-COVID, we've had a really major growth, and that's mainly through North America, some Asia Pacific, and Germany actually. And the important thing really in a growing company is that every executive leader is delegating. So, you know, I just talk to all of the guys and just say, just think you're delegating. Just think of what you did this year. You're delegating 30 to 50% of what you do. You've got to find people that are going to do that. And you've got to help people. And maybe the first time they do it, they do a hash of it. The second time, they do a 70% job. The next time they do it. But the people in our company that can lead people to improve, those are the people that are going to succeed. And if they've got some gaps in their training, we'll send them to Liverpool University.
Perfect. You mentioned leadership, and obviously, about delegation, and I guess what didn't you appreciate about leadership until you were in that position? What did you find challenging, and how did you deal with it?
I think I when I left university, I was probably a bit of a geeky engineer, and I think the number one thing I had to learn was how to communicate, and I only really learned that working for a startup I worked for before, Continental, and with that, you know, those communication skills, I sort of learned, you know, there's nobody else to do it, so I've got to do it, so sort of thing. So yeah, I suppose that's really what I learned. But I think that I sort of learned on the job lots of things. I mean, I think that doing an engineering education and then topping it off with some sort of business training, I would have probably done an MBA if I hadn't started Technetix, because I think that you have to communicate in business terms to banks, and you have to understand balance sheets. You have to be able to communicate return on investment. But I didn't have time to learn, so I had to read books on it and get very clever people to train me in how to do it. And that's how I learned. You know, when you're starting a business, you have to have a budget. You have to aim in a particular direction. You mustn't spend the money too quickly, and be very careful. Have a bit of rainy day money. It's all the sort of things you would learn on a business course.
Well, if I were advertising, that would be a perfect time to highlight the management school's excellent MBA programs at Liverpool. But I will not. I will move on
All right.
instead.
Well, I wish I'd done it, but you weren't advertising it very well. But now it's different. I know.
No, absolutely. Well, so I will come to questions in just a moment. What was been your favourite project then throughout your career, or perhaps favourite corporate acquisition, favourite new market?
That there's so many really. I mean, I think at the moment we're doing this big rollout in North America on rolling out 10G, and that's been so difficult, so many sleepless nights to succeed on it. But we're now very much delivering. So we were, you know, an ankle biter, I suppose, in the market, and we're now leading supplier to one of the two main broadband suppliers in USA, Charter, and we're also leading supplier into Rogers, the #1 broadband company in Canada. So I think achieving that, and that's been a team effort, not just me, and just getting that team to achieve that has been, you know, a wonderful, amazing team effort. It's very much like a football team winning a trophy. You know, you can't sort of say the striker did it or the goalkeeper did it. It's the whole team did it. But in terms of the company, there's been lots of sort of landmark marquee steps. You know, in our early days, when Channel 5 TV started, they needed a load of filters. So we're only a 2.5 million turnover company or revenue company. And Channel 5, some guys I knew from BSB came to us and said, can you do a special filter to block interference? And we got this order to do a very large quantity, about 2 million filters for them, which was a 6.5 million order, which luckily they didn't check how big we were. And thing is, we delivered it. And that was down to personal relationship. They trusted us and we delivered. And that was very, very difficult because the company had to, in 1995, 96, increased in size 5x. And 5x is pretty crazy. I've never done that since or now. And then I would say I think the thing that we're doing now, which is also in, you know, opening into the next few years, is all of our companies are very worried about ESG and being net zero. And one of the key things for all of our telecoms companies is reducing electricity consumption. So I'm very, very pleased that we've put a lot of stress into ourselves and made our new generation faster equipment take 30% less electrical power than the previous generation. And I would say that, as I said, what we're doing, rather than rip out and replace, we're actually doing upgrade paths for existing network, and that's much greener in terms of carbon footprint, less digging of roads, no trench digging, just upgrading existing and making existing good to 2040. So, you know, a lot of the things that people said was impossible, we're making possible. You know, it's no different than, you know, Liverpool beating Barcelona. Was it 3 years ago? You sit there and think, how are we going to beat them 4-0? You just have to try, and the impossible becomes possible. That's the way I would say.
Well,
Liverpool hinge.
No, so thank you, Paul. I will stop my questions now and give way to our audience, because I know that Andy has some questions from those attending. So I will pass over, but thank you, Paul.
Thank you. Thank you,
Thanks, Mark. Yeah, we are getting some really nice questions into the chat box. You can either send them to everyone, or a few of you have been sending them directly to me, which is nice as well. So either way is absolutely fine. So I'll try and get through as many as we can. So Paul, the first question I've got is, what would you like your business to be remembered for?
Oh gosh, that's a bit of a curly ball. I would say that I would it's not about money. I think I would say I would just like to be the most respected business in our market. But our target rises further and further, because when I first started, being a million turnover, we're now this year we're going to be about 140 million pounds. I would say just to be the most respected, but I think that you know, I'd love to meet all those bank representatives in the early days who told me that broadband would never take off, and I was saying it's going to be a utility like water and gas and electricity, and they were going, no, it's just going to be for gamers. And in reality, I just like to. I suppose I'd like to be respected in my market, really. And you know, I don't have any great things beyond that, really.
Great, thank you. Our next question asks, have you read any business books that have inspired you throughout your journey in your career?
Oh gosh, lots and lots. Oh gosh, what is a good business book to? Oh, I wish you'd have. I'd have to think about that. I used to read a lot of business books, but I work so hard these days, I don't get a chance to read so much. Oh gosh, I mean, I think that I read different books on different things. You know, I think I was always. I mean, one book which is an old one, Good to Great. I forget who wrote it. But if you look at Good to Great, I think that if you're going, it emphasizes that if you're going to do anything, do it 110% or don't do it. And I think I very much believe in that thinking. I think in terms of all the things about being a successful business, just read around every subject, you know, about emotional intelligence and interaction with people. You know, there's quite a number of very good books about analyzing people. In fact, I think that the the most important thing I think in growing a business, which I've found, has been hiring the right people, because I think that if you've got the right ideas, you can raise the capital, but the most important thing is to get the right people, and you've got to build the environment to get those people. And the best thing, in fact, one book I also think, I'm not sure whether I'm allowed to say it, but it's a book called The No AH Rule, and it defines what an AH is, and it's brilliant definition, and it's say don't hire them, and it's very, very good. That's a very good book. So don't put that down against my name, though.
Thank you, Paul. Our next question comes from Philip, and he says, telecom businesses face one of the highest customer mobility churns. Does this affect your business, and how have you handled this challenge over the years?
Yeah, that is a big problem. And in fact, particularly in the UK, Northern Europe, UK, Germany, Netherlands, not so much in America, but it's coming. We deal also in Latin America, where it is crazy. You have 5 network operators running parallel networks. So yeah, that's very much an issue. And there's really only 2 ways for the telecoms operator to respond to it. Is one, sell a better product than the competition, or 2, reduce their operating costs in an initial capital costs to be cheaper than their competition, so that they can charge lower prices. I mean, obviously we tend to prefer the former one, which is more speed, better quality, better reliability, more resilient. And that's normally the way in which you deal with mobility and churns. And if you just imagine yourself as a mobile phone user or as a broadband user, it's not just price, it's also how many times did it go down? If it does go down, what do they do? Do they deal with it fast or slow? But, you know, for us as a network equipment vendor, it's actually supplying equipment that's very, very resilient and reliable. And if we can make it that way, we can charge a little bit more for it. But yeah, competition, you know, has been very, very tough. I mean, for us, the thing that was very, very tough when we were just Eurocentric is we were making electronic equipment, and our cost base was in US dollars, and the pound and the euro have collapsed against the US dollar. So our cost base has always been moving against us. You know, from 2008 to 2012, the euro has fallen about 30% against the US dollar. Post, well, in fact, in 2008, pound also went down but recovered. And then, of course, post-Brexit, after Brexit, the pound collapsed again and has never really recovered. And of course, our cost base has not changed. So the thing that's really helped us is to be selling more in dollars. So we're dollar in, dollar out, and being a global business. So in terms of competition in the world, I would say that it's never ending. It's like running in a marathon. You can't, if you sort of just if you just slow down a little bit, and you're in the leading pack. If you slow down a bit, suddenly you're not in the leading pack. So you just have to keep running. You know, it's like a football team. What was good enough for 2000 or 2010 is just nowhere near good enough for now, and you just have to keep getting better and better. I suppose that's the only thing I can say.
Great, thanks, Paul. We've had a few questions from Nick, who asked a little bit about AI earlier, but I think you've answered that. But Nick sent me some direct questions as well. And he asks, what's your favourite memory of being a student at the Liverpool, University of Liverpool, and who is your role model?
My role model. From Liverpool University.
Sorry, I think the role model one's just in general, but the other question was your favourite memory of being a student at the University of Liverpool.
I would say that I believe in work-life balance, and I love music. And when I was in Liverpool, I used to see two really top bands every week in the Union, in the Mountford Hall. I assume the Mountford Hall's still going. And I had a great social life, social time in Liverpool. So in terms of a balance, I think that having that right, you come out of university a balanced person, rather than, you know, some very, very crazy academic institutions where you don't relax from time to time. But on the other hand, the workload was also, but doing engineering at Liverpool was also very tough. I used to have a lot of all-nighters as well when I was at Liverpool, mainly because I probably didn't start doing the work until midnight. But I just had a great time. It's such a great city. You know, I could talk for half an hour about all the great times, and that was really where I started to really support Liverpool Football Club as well. And it's been a while since that. I mean, it was really, really great when I was in Liverpool. And then it sort of had about 30 years of not doing so well, but finally they've come back. So that's where I come back to Liverpool now. So I will come and see you guys next time I come to a match.
Yeah, that'd be lovely. Thank you. And the question about a role model, do you have a particular role model that you've kind of looked up to throughout your career?
I think that in terms of role models, God, I've not answered that question before. I think that the thing that I always, as an engineer, I still always think in what I'm doing is not enough, and I always look at the great things that people have done before. You know, probably the thing I most respect of all things that were ever done, it's not really one person, but a endeavor, was the Apollo space program. You know, the number of aspects that were needed to put a man on the moon for Apollo 11. If I could do 10% of what those guys did, I would be very, very happy. You know, I'm very much inspired by them. But, you know, there's so many, you know, leaders like Bill Gates or Apple, Steve Jobs. You know, the way those guys have built great companies, you know, is, I suppose, where I have most respect.
Okay, thank you. And our next question is, do you have a particular favourite country that you've worked in?
The great thing I've had is Technetix exports into 70 countries, so I've traveled one hell of a lot. And I would say that I come back to the UK and think, wow, we're very lucky. The UK has got so many good things going for it. But I would say that I love Australia. Australia is most amazing. It's got wonderful weather. You know, in terms of interracial integration, it's probably one of the best countries. It doesn't matter what creed, what religion, where you come from, you're treated very much equally. Canada's like that as well, though. Canada's too cold, though, but Canada would be okay otherwise. I like the United States, but yeah, I would probably say Australia or the United States probably ideal. But in Europe, I still think UK is the best country by far, and it's got some wonderful cities, you know, like Liverpool, for instance.
Very on brand. Thank you, Paul. Our next question says, so what are the main attributes you think you need to start your own business?
I think the number one thing, if you want to start your own business, is learn about a market and learn about a product to differentiate. You know, go and do a business studies course or something to learn about running a business, but running a business operationally well is very, very difficult way to make a buck. You know, you sort of look at, say, Dell computers, you know, say, or as an example, you know, why are they successful? They're not successful because they invented the most greatest computer. They're successful because they have the lowest working capital. They have the lowest lead times. They execute perfectly. They get their quality right. For me, I'm much more interested in a product with differentiation, talking to customers, and you know, with that, you've got to learn about product, whatever it is. You've got to learn about differentiation in design and execution. And for me, that's the most important things. Is, you know, if you're gonna do a product business, learn about the market and the technology behind the product or the design. It could be if it's a design product. If it's a service, it's really looking at the deep dive detail of how that service is done more efficiently. You know, for example, Uber. You know, Uber, all they did was bring Google Maps, a smartphone together, and just plonk something on top of it to link you and communicate you with a cab. It's so simple, but it's the people that were the first people to do it thought of it, so they had to know the technology. But you look at so many businesses, it's you know, the big businesses are platforms. You know, the real breakthrough, say, for Apple was not the iPhone. It was iTunes. It was the platform of iTunes to sell apps. That's, you know, where they really make margin. And that's where, you know, the technology in iPhone was just a me too to lots of other people, but the real differentiation was some special technology. So I think that the great thing is really to think out in doing a product or a service, think out a differentiation. Just think about you, the customer, what's good, what's bad, and what could be better. And you just think about all the problems that you go through in your life that waste your time, that could be done better. You know, it's amazing. You sort of just follow different businesses. They they rise up and then they fall down because they don't move fast enough. And that's the feeling I always have. It's the fear of failing is I once went to a talk by Michael Jordan, and they asked him what drove him, and he said he could remember the 6 times he missed putting the ball in the basket, and he could name the game 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And the thing was that failing was and I think running a business, it's actually trying not to fail and really working very hard not to fail, and that's the most important thing.
Great, thank you, Paul. We are up to our final question now from the audience, so this is our last one. And thank you again for giving us so much of your time. And the question is: as a current student, how do I stand out in the jobs market today?
I think coming from a Russell Group University, well, I assume I'm addressing Liverpool graduates there. Coming from a Russell Group University, you're one of about 15 to 18 universities. So you're already, head and shoulders above a lot of colleges. So I think if your CV passes over a lot of tables of employers, you're already going to be noticed. But I think the important way to stand out is really to not tell. The way I would say is a bit like when you're walking down a street, looking at which restaurant to go in. Don't tell them everything there is to know about you. Just tell them the delicious bits to make them curious, to want to know more about you. So just try and sit down with 3 of your friends and just think, what is, Brand Andy? What is different about Brand Andy? What do you think I'm better? And just stress those 4 or 5 things. So keep the CV ideally 1 page, or certainly, 1 page with a bit of backup. I mean, obviously, if you're a student leaving college, it's probably one page. And I mean, one HR guy told me, one of the greatest lessons an HR guy told me is, don't hire on what people did before. Don't so much sell what you did before, sell what your potential is, because I'm not going to get what you did before. Me as an employer, I'm going to get what you're going to do for me, my company. So sell what are you capable of? I would say that, and keep it simple, stupid, I suppose.
That's wonderful, thank you, and another great bit of advice. And this talk's been full of great advice. So thank you, Paul. It's been fascinating to hear about your journey since graduation, and I'm sure everyone's really enjoyed it. We're getting lots of great comments in the box there to say how much people have enjoyed it, and thank you for passing on such.
All right, well, thank you. I've really enjoyed it. It's really been fun, Andy. It's been great to meet you face to face finally.
Yeah, thank you, Paul. And thank you to Mark for being our wonderful host for today as well, our guest host. Thank you to everyone for attending as well, and for your great questions. We've had some lovely questions there for Paul, which we really appreciate. This is our final event in the series for this year for the Liverpool Leaders. We'll be back in March, hopefully. So I just wanted to wish everyone kind of Merry Christmas and Happy New Year. We do have another series called Bringing the World to Liverpool, which is monthly. So we are back for that in January, so look out for your emails for that. But yeah, just thank you to everyone for your support with this event series, and my final thanks is to you, Paul, for sharing your experiences and giving us so much of your time. We do really appreciate it.
Well, it's been my honour. I've really enjoyed it, and I'm happy for you to circulate my email address if anyone's got any follow-up questions, and hopefully come and meet you next time I'm in Liverpool, Andy.
Yeah, that'd be lovely. Thank you, Paul. And yeah, thank you, everyone. There's lots of great comments in there for you to read, Paul. But yeah, everyone's really enjoyed it, so thank you.
Oh, thank you. I've really enjoyed it. Great.
Absolute pleasure. Thank you, Paul.
Thank you, everybody, and we'll see you soon.
Thanks all.
Bye-bye. Bye-bye.